So next up, we're going to begin with some industry insights. It actually occurred to me, I think all the lawyers here are really, they're like everybody's got a great lawyer joke, right? I think we have a fabulous amount of attorneys present with like a whole personality. I'm looking at you, Karen, and right now we have Alan Woods joining us from CleanDNS with statistics and numbers and all sorts of things that I really trust you will actually make engaging and interesting. So no pressure. Come on up.
Thank you, everybody. So to introduce myself then, I'm Alan Woods. I apologize in advance. I'm Irish, therefore I speak exceptionally fast, so please wave frantically if you find me going far too fast at any time. I am the General Counsel and Chief Policy Officer for CleanDNS, which is an anti-online harms company. So we work with a lot of registries, we work with a lot of registrars, and hopefully as of tomorrow, we're going to work with our first Web 3.0 company as well and trying to mitigate some harms that could potentially come through those platforms as well. So we're again innovating through, but that's not why I'm here to, well, it is in a way, but I'm here to discuss kind of industry trends. And obviously I'm coming from an anti-online harms company. So one of the questions that people always ask is, well, what are we doing to mitigate harms? And talking normally when somebody comes up to speak after somebody like Nigel Hickson, you go, oh God, I don't envy the person following him. But in this instance, I'm really happy to be following him because I think I can actually take us to the next step when we're talking about accountability. And that's kind of, so I press the button and hopefully it works. No. I mean, you don't need to look at my face that big, for God's sake. Is there a... No? There's no... Oh, I do have slides, but that's okay. I will speak them through. That's fine. Okay. Nothing like live television, folks. Okay, so let me very quickly then go on to the first. So what we did in CleanDNS is we were in a way commissioned. We've been working with the registries and registrars in order to take the information on a very specific online harm, and that is for phishing, as being one of the ones that is widely represented. From our point of view, 97% of the actual reports that we get for our registry and registrar clients relate to phishing, which is massive. And we took a year of the data. So we have currently over 600 TLDs monitored through our platform, covers about 43 million domains. And through so we're talking all of 2023. This will all be beautiful on the screen if it was there, but I'll be able to send on these slides to anybody afterwards. There were 73,000 domains that we escalated. Now, what we try and do when it comes to DNS abuse, there is a huge amount of discourse at the moment about there are X amount of reports. There's hundreds of thousands, millions of reports that are coming through, all the various reporting elements, all the large block lists, just abuse reports that come through. But what we want to make very clear, and this is where accountability comes into it, is that from a registry, from a registrar point of view, not in every case is the registry or the registrar the appropriate party to take an action. Because again, it is a blunt force trauma to the internet if you were to take down a domain name. So what we do is we try and work very much exclusively on the evidence-based escalation, that an action that is taken will not be taken unless we can draw that back to some form of evidence. Now, generally speaking, when we're talking phishing, the obvious escalation that we look at there is a screenshot of a fish, that it is trying to represent it as a confidence trick of some sort to get personal information. But of course, there are other evidence elements that are not necessarily a screenshot. There are other elements that can bring you past that 50% mark. Because again, we're not talking about criminal standards here. We're talking about civil standards. So it's on the balance of probabilities. Is it more than likely? Is it actually properly, arguably something that is bad? So of those 73,000 reports, let me just take this. The average age of the domain we saw in these 71,000 reports. Now, these were an average age of a domain of under 60 days that we took action on 73,000 domains. 14% of those domains were actually taken down in an average of 41 hours from registration. So for our clients, what we do is we get the reports, we review, we investigate, and we see those reports. We put it through our engine, and we have an actual back end into several registries that we can take action directly through our platform. And that's what happened in these. So we call them protective holds, where we say, hey, we've noticed this is the evidence, we're taking this down. If you want to appeal the takedown, then please let us know. And I can say 99.9% of the time, we never get any response back because it's very much a clear-cut fish. Outside of those protective holds, the regular escalation time for that was actually 2.4 days it takes. So where we have to escalate from a registry to a registrar, on average, it takes about 2.4 days because they have to talk to their registrar or they need to verify it internally. But that actually, when you look at the age of the domain itself, then it's about 13.2 days from registration that takes. And as we know, the time in dealing with something like a phish attack is absolutely important, because the more amount of time that phishing attack is up, the more potential there is for an impact or harm to the end user. What's an interesting point, and this will come to a point at the end of the presentation, is that of that, only 1% of the 73,000 reports were dealt with by a response from, say, a hosting provider or from a third party who could have been a platform, something like that. So again, obviously, the Metas of the world, the link shorteners of the world, there was only 1% of those reports that we made ever got a response from that third party, where sometimes is probably the far better way to take action when it comes to domains, because it's not necessarily the domain name, but the platform on it. The average age of domains, as I said, is under 60 days for what we call domains registered for an apparent abusive purpose. So that's a drop. All the acronyms, I know, but like for these domains, as I said, under 60 days. Now, to move to the next one, it's those ones that we, as registries and registrars, and looking at the terms for registries and registrars, that we are exceptionally reluctant to take any action on. And that is ones that are older domains which we believe were in a way compromised. And I'm going to draw a line in the compromised conversation at the moment, because it's the domain is never the thing that is compromised. It is something that's associated with the domain that is being compromised. So we talk about the compromise of or an exploited service or an exploited platform that is associated with the domain. I'm not going to take down Amazon.com because somebody is selling a fake bag on Amazon.com, because that would ruin the internet. But on a smaller scale, I'll tell a very quick anecdote. The first domain that I actually took down for an anti-CSAM effort, I also inadvertently took down 6,000 emails for 2 weeks, because I just took down 6,000 emails. I took down a domain that had CSAM on it. However, of course, it was a file share site, and I then learned that very quickly. So we all make mistakes in that sense. So what's interesting about this particular category, whereas we had 73,000 domains under 60 days, in this category, we only in an entire year had 2,523 actual escalations for domains that were exploited or compromised in some way. And the average age of those domains was actually 7.6 years. So there is a massive gap in there. Moving along then is the third category. The third category then is the ones that we couldn't take action. And this is where it's important when we're talking about this evidence-based escalation. There were 41,000 domains that by the time we got it, by the time we saw it, by the time we investigated it, by the time we looked at it, we could find no evidence that brought it to the attention that it was a phish. And you can say, well, that's a problem with CleanDNS, possibly. But more so, it was a problem with the fact that there was no readily available data that we could publicly or privately get from the registry, the registry operator, through the internet itself, in order to substantiate and ensure that we're meeting that level of expectation, that due process expectation, that appropriateness level. And that kind of is the point of when I'm talking about why I'm following Nigel, that there is an awful lot of action that is being taken by the registries. I always think registries and registrars in a way, and specifically the ICANN ones, I call it the path of least resistance, because at least there's somewhere for people to go and somewhere to say, registries, registrars, you're sitting here in a room at an ICANN, or you're sitting here at a room in a center, and I'm going to focus on ye because you're the people I can talk to. And then ICANN level, there's an awful lot of people who, there can be pushed these obligations. Now, I had the pleasure of being one of the negotiators of the recent DNS abuse amendments when I was in my previous job for the registries. And it was monumental that we could move forward. But it took us 8 years to get to that point, because it took us 8 years to be able to say no, as well as saying yes. For us to set the expectation of a registry, set the expectation of a registrar, that there is an appropriate action that a registry or registrar must do. And given the statistics of 73,000 domains that we, for our clients, took down in the last year, that we were able to show that we do take that appropriate role when it is necessary and when it is, again, to use the word a little bit too much, appropriate for that registry or registrar to take action. The moral of the 41,000 is that we need better means of data sharing. We are one layer of the stack. Registries, registrars, domains, they're one layer of the stack. And there is a lot more about data and actions and information that are being taken at the hosting layer, taken at the platform layer, taken at the services layer, that we don't have any insight to. One of the complaints from a lot of registrars as well is saying that, we take an awful lot of action that nobody sees. We get to the DNS abuse before any of these reports come out and they see it. We've taken action on tens of thousands of domains, but you never report that. All you see is the ones that made it through. So that's what I'm saying, and this is a great room for this, that there is the next step after the DNS abuse amendments is saying, well, what do we do next in order to continue to push against the narrative that is there, that domains are, the be-all and root evil of all bad on the internet. And the answer to that is we need to talk better between the stacks. We need a better interoperable approach, and we need to start sharing a little bit more. And I know things like GDPR and data protection are very huge concerns for everybody, but all the work that we do in CleanDNS is, generally speaking, PII agnostic. We do not use PII in our investigations for registrars or registries or registrars unless the registrar gives us access so that he can work on an account level. So generally speaking, I would ask you all to keep an eye on what's happening soon. There is a coalition of registries, registrars, and indeed some hosting companies. And we want to sit down at the table. There's going to be an event early next year, I believe, as well, that will be in Amsterdam in February, I think, but more to come on that, where we're inviting people to not point the finger, but to say, we understand that everybody has a role to play in this, but we need to work together to understand what we're doing, what is our role continuing, and what will we do in the future, so that when the questions about accountability, when the questions about the multi-stakeholder model and our ability as an industry to be able to work together in order to prevent these are going to be brought to the table, that we can point to that. We did it a bit in the registry and the registrar at the beginning when we talked about the framework to deal with DNS abuse. That was a catalyst. It was a kickstart moment that brought us to the point where we are now, and we now need to look to the future as well. So I have no idea where I am because I forgot to start my timer. We're done. So I'll just say thank you. I'll be around for the next few days. Please talk to me about CleanDNS at any time. Happy to talk to you about registry, registrar. We have a lot of data as well in Syncal, so more than happy to talk to people about that as well. But with that, thank you for listening to me. And hopefully it was less than not entertaining.
Thanks, Alan. That was wonderful.